Janet!
Dr. Knight, I didn't know you were in town.
I have a patient here in the hospital, Mrs. Applegate.
Oh, Dr. McIver's case. Close one, wasn't it?
Yes, we got her here just in time.
Well, nice to have seen you again, Doctor.
Oh, matter of fact, I was about to look you up, but I'm downright sorry to find you here.
Sorry?
Yes, I see you're on the case.
Oh, not much longer. I go off of it tomorrow. You know, patient cured, nurse unemployed.
Good. What you ought to do now is get away from the city. Spend about a month in the country, where the air is clean and fresh and sweet. There are trees and grass, crystal clear lakes, and hills climbing right up to heaven. Do I sound enough like the Chamber of Commerce?
Wish I could go just the same.
Well, you can. I'm taking Mrs. Applegate home to Falls Church tomorrow. She'll need a nurse for about 4 or 5 weeks, and you'd be doing me a favor if you came.
Well, the favor's all yours, thank you, and I accept.
Good. Would you like to come in and meet Mrs. Applegate now?
Yes, I would, but just for a minute.
Oh, morning.
Elizabeth, I brought a young lady for you to meet. One of the best nurses I know, Miss Janet Dean. Janet, Mrs. Applegate.
How do you do?
Not by any chance one of the Boston Deans?
No, Kansas City.
Oh.
I hear they've been admitted to the Union, though. Is that right, Janet?
Since 1821.
Well, that's a little recent. Don't you have any old New England background you can point to with pride?
Now, let me see. My mother was a Bradford. Will that do?
One of the Bradfords?
You have me there. All I know is they came from Massachusetts.
Came from Massachusetts. William Bradford was head of the Mayflower Company and first governor of the colony.
Janet, you may not appreciate it, but you have just passed. You have proved your membership in the only acceptable portion of the human race. Society of Descendants of New England Ancestors. President, Elizabeth Stonehill Applegate.
Don't be facetious, Benjamin. You're just as proud of your ancestry as I am.
Proud? Yes. Yes, they proved they were good people. But I'm hanged if that proves I'm any better than my neighbor. That depends on what I do, not my great-grandfather.
Of course. But his blood makes you a better person and enables you to do better things.
Well, I'd better hurry up and do them then before I join him.
I'm happy to have met you, Mrs. Applegate.
Well, Elizabeth, what does she do?
Mother of Bradford. In the direct line, I wonder, or collateral?
Well, you can find that out when you get her back in Falls Church. Convalescing.
She'll do.
Elizabeth, you're incorrigible.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell Janet so she can get ready right away.
Well, here we are. I'm sure it must be good to be home again.
It certainly is. Miss Dean, will you wheel me over to the fireplace?
Of course. What a nice room.
Miss Dean, that's the General.
General Stonehill?
Nathaniel Stonehill, my great-great-great-grandfather. 7th governor of this state, commander of the 3rd Continentals, twice wounded in action, and 3 times cited for gallantry, once by General Washington himself, who called him the hero of Kings Point.
I don't wonder you're proud of him. I would be, too.
They don't understand those things down in the city. Why should they? Foreign hybrid stock.
What do you think most Americans are?
More's the pity. We'd have been better off if they'd stayed where they belonged and left the country to purebred Americans.
You mean the Indians?
Is that supposed to be a witticism?
No, just a scientific fact. And another fact that where you belong right now is in bed.
Jonathan Bradford. Oh, Miss Dean, what did you say was the given name of your maternal grandfather's elder brother?
Elisha? Or was it Elijah? One or the other.
My dear, you don't seem to realize the importance of having... Come in.
Are you ladies receiving this afternoon?
Would you take these, my dear? Surely. Now, Benjamin, what's this I hear about a trip? Europe, isn't it?
How did you find that out when I've scarcely mentioned it to myself?
Money burning a hole in your pocket? You must have more than I thought. No wonder the fees you charge me. But from now on, you can cut mine in half.
You can take that up with my successor.
Successor? You're not thinking of retiring, are you?
I've not only thought of it, I've made up my mind. What's the good of overcharging your patients if you don't live to enjoy it? Yes, I intend to spend all of it before I die.
Must be the Hopkins in you. The nights were always...
Parsimonious?
Well, you couldn't call them extravagant. Why, even the Hopkins were kind of thrifty.
Well, just goes to show, Elizabeth, background doesn't always tell.
Well, I hope you found a good doctor to succeed you.
I have. He's a crackerjack. Wouldn't be surprised if he's an improvement on me.
Where's he from?
Well, most recently New York.
New York. What's his name?
Dr. Freed.
Freed?
Morris Freed.
Why, that sounds as if he was a foreigner.
That's only natural. He is.
Benjamin Knight. Are you serious?
I most certainly am. Now listen to me, Elizabeth.
Now, you listen to me. You must be out of your senses, bringing a foreigner like that to Falls Church.
You're lucky to be getting him. He's one of the most brilliant doctors I've ever met.
You can't do this to us. I won't have him here.
You won't have him? Who do you think you are, County Medical Society? The man is more than capable of taking over my practice. And neither you nor anyone else...
And who do you think you are, trying to force him down our throats? I don't care who he is. I will not have any foreigners practicing here. And if you're going to bring him here anyway, well, it's just as well you are leaving. And you needn't trouble to come back. You'll have lost your welcome here.
Elizabeth, I'm going to try to be calm. For the sake of my own health as well as yours. Now, I'm not going to argue with your prejudices. I'm afraid it's too late for that. Just try to look at this practically. From a strictly medical viewpoint, mine. I care a great deal about Falls Church and the people who live here. It's been my job to do so for most of my life. And now that it's come time for me to turn over that job to someone else, you can be good and sure I don't intend to turn it over to anybody but the best man I can find. And when I'm fortunate enough to get that man, believe me, I'm not going to let his place of birth stop me. Any more than I would the color of his hair or the name he was born with.
A man's name is important, as well as his birthplace and ancestry.
Only the fact that he's got them. I give you my professional assurance. Freed is a good doctor. Far better than I could have hoped to get. Too many doctors nowadays prefer to practice in the cities, where there's more money.
Do you mean to say he's not interested in money?
He's more interested in raising his 2 children in the country.
Children? A family? First one, then another. Before you know where we are, we'll be overrun.
Speaking purely as your doctor, I assure you that's the least of your problems. I won't examine you now, Elizabeth. You're too upset, but I'll drop in again.
You needn't bother.
Well, whatever your feelings are, you still need a doctor, you know.
I shall call Dr. Mears.
As you wish. You can be treated by any doctor you like. And he's certainly a good man. You'll acquaint Dr. Mears with the course of treatment and tell him he may call me for consultation. For which there will be no charge. I'll see you again, I hope, before I leave.
Of course, Doctor.
Goodbye, Elizabeth.
Miss Dean, Will you please call Dr. Mears?
Yes, but first I'd like to tell you that I wish you would get another nurse.
Your leave. When?
As soon as I can be replaced.
Very well.
I see. Well, Mrs. Applegate, I can certainly find no fault with Dr. Knight's treatment of your case.
I didn't say I found fault with his doctoring. That's not why I called you.
Mrs. Applegate, if you wish me to take over your case and continue the same course of treatment, that's up to you. But there's more than enough work in this area for 2 doctors. For one, it would be a sheer impossibility. And if everyone is going to take your attitude toward Dr. Freed, who I understand is an excellent man...
I have heard enough about his abilities, thank you. I am not interested. What I want to know is, will you doctor me or won't you?
I'm at your service, of course.
Then that's settled.
You've had cases like this before.
Yes, I have, Doctor.
I thought so. It shows.
Well, thank you. However, I'm afraid I'll be leaving soon.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Do you suppose we could persuade Miss Dean to stay?
I didn't fire her, if that's what you mean. She took it into her own head to up and quit.
Could I persuade you? I'll need help.
Well, surely, Doctor, there are other nurses you've worked with.
None is familiar with this type of case.
Until you can get one.
Good girl. I'll stop in the morning on my morning rounds. In the meantime, you can always reach me at my home or office. Good day.
Lunch will be ready soon. The children took theirs to school. They seem to like it. Is something the matter?
Listen to this, Lisa. The Stonehill Memorial Hospital regrets they will be unable to admit your patients or permit you to practice medicine
But
and...
why?
Rules, regulations. All of which, in effect, say, no foreigners in Falls Church.
Went that I'd rather die, I'd write to Benjamin Knight and ask him a favor.
What favor?
He could send me some information from England. I've been trying to finish this family tree for years. I'd have made the trip myself if it hadn't been for this illness.
Mrs. Applegate.
Yes?
I understand you're responsible for Dr. Freed being barred from the hospital.
What of it?
You realize that because of it, a man almost died this morning?
What man?
Will Tompkins, a patient of his. One of the few left him by Dr. Knight who have stuck to him. It was an emergency appendectomy, but the hospital refused to accept him till Freed got hold of me, so I could admit him as my patient.
Well, it turned out all right then. He pulled through, didn't he?
Yes, but suppose Freed hadn't been able to reach me in time.
But he did. And if Dr. Freed can't meet all the requirements of the hospital, we shall just have to do without him, that's all.
Unless that order is rescinded, I intend to take it up with the county medical board, not only as a clear case of prejudice, but as a threat to the health and safety of this community.
You do that, Dr. Mears. But while you're at it, remember, it's the Stonehill Memorial Hospital supported by Stonehill funds. Let your precious county medical board remember that.
If that man had died, it would be your fault.
Nonsense.
And if it happens again, Mrs. Applegate, it will be your fault. Applegate.
Pain. Breathe.
Where?
All over. The prickly
You like to lie down. 1021, please. Dr. Mears? Oh, this is Miss Dean. Oh, I see. Well, this is an emergency. May I please have his telephone number where I can reach him? 0779. Thank you. Oh, 0779, please. Dr. Mears, this is Miss Dean. Mrs. Applegate has just been seized with an attack.
Well, I'll get there as soon as I can, but I'm out here in the country on an OB, and it'll be 2 or 3 hours at least. No, I don't think you should wait. Call Dr. Freed at once. I've never seen it performed. It was just brilliant.
Thank you. And now I had better leave.
She's coming out of it beautifully. She'll be all right now.
Dr. Mears?
Yes?
With your permission, I'd like to withdraw from the case now.
Well, I can't say I blame you. You've stayed on longer than you wanted to.
Dr. Mears.
You're in the hospital, Mrs. Applegate. We had to operate. But everything is fine. You'll be all right now.
Thank you.
Don't thank me. Thank Dr. Freed.
Dr. Freed. You called him in spite of...
I certainly did.
Your discharge.
You're a little late. I'll get the floor nurse to take over until the special can get here.
All right.
And then I'll be at the house packing in case the new nurse wants to know anything. Goodbye, Mrs. Applegate.
disobeyed me.
At my orders. So you can discharge me, too. That would suit me just fine.
You told her to call?
If it weren't for him, you wouldn't be alive this minute. Think that over, Mrs. Applegate. Every time you take a breath.
He's one of the most brilliant doctors I've ever met.
If that man had died, it would be your fault.
If it weren't for him, you wouldn't be alive this minute. Don't thank me. Thank Dr. Freed. Thank Dr. Freed. Thank Dr. Freed.
Lisa, how would you like to go back to New York? There's an opening on the staff of the Deaconess Hospital. They asked me if I wanted.
Do you?
Do you? Dr. Freed speaking. Yes, Mrs. Applegate?
Dr. Freed, I understand that I owe you my life.
Don't worry about it, Mrs. Applegate. I will send you a bill.
Please do. And Dr. Freed, on behalf of the trustees, as well as myself, I would like to extend our invitation to join the staff of the hospital.
Join the staff? Well, the fact is, Mrs. Applegate, my wife and I were considering returning to New York.
Oh, Dr. Freed, I hope you will reconsider that decision and accept our invitation. And my humblest apologies to you for the distress I've caused to you and your family.
I will have to think about it, and I will let you know.
May I come in?
Yes? Oh, are you going?
Yes, my train leaves in a few minutes. There's some mail for you. There's a registered letter here.
Thank
and
you.
the doctor asked me to bring some things over for you.
I hope this is the information I asked Benjamin to send me about the family tree, the missing branches. No.
Is something the matter?
You may as well see what's in this paper. I don't suppose Benjamin Knight will keep it a secret very long.
Well, if it's personal, Mrs. Applegate, I would just as soon not.
No, my dear, you will be interested. The founder of the English branch first arrived in London in 1682, having emigrated from Saxe-Coburg, where he was a tailor by trade. His family had lived there for 3 generations. I suppose there are worse things than being a foreigner.
I think so.
Hello. Oh, Dr. Freed. You will? Oh, I'm so glad. Welcome to Falls Church.